An innocent-looking London bookshop remains the site of a particularly gruesome and feared entity which haunted the premises for almost 100 years. The so-called Nameless Thing of Berkeley Square was believed to haunt the second floor of house number 50, creating a mayhem of harm and trauma to those unlucky enough to encounter it. The presence seemed to originate around the year 1840, although ever since house number 50 was erected in Mayfair in central London, there had been odd accounts of something strange lurking on the second floor. In the 1840s, a bold young nobleman called Sir Robert Warboys scoffed at the reported hauntings as little more than superstition. At the tender age of 20, the young man made a terrible mistake when he accepted a dare from his friends to demonstrate how foolish the claims were by spending the night in the haunted room on the second floor. The then landlord of the house was horrified and so concerned for Warboys' safety that he agreed to the proposal on two conditions. He insisted that Sir Robert take with him a loaded pistol and also that he use the bell to summon the servants should he require any assistance. Despite these cautions, Warboys was still dismissive and retired to bed, but very soon, just after midnight, the servants' bell rang, gently at first, but after a short pause, furiously. As those present rushed up the stairs, a pistol shot rang out, and flinging open the door, they found Sir Robert cowering in a corner and absolutely petrified, his eyes bulging in shock. He was completely unable to speak and passed away soon after from his obvious trauma, his facial features distorted and grip still firmly on the pistol. He had fired at a wall and left a bullet mark there, and yet no sign of whatever had confronted him was found. Strange things continued to happen when the house's next inhabitant moved in 1859, and as time passed, more accounts were related of what became known as the Nameless Thing. It was said to drive people to insanity should they gaze upon it for too long, and what small glimpses people did catch of it defied rationality. Some perceived the phenomenon as a cloud of mist and smoke, while others described a putrid, tentacled creature resembling a squid or octopus, which seemed to secrete a foul-smelling slime. In other sightings, it would manifest as a tall, shadowy man, or sometimes as a mass of slime with claws and tentacles that made hideous noises as it moved along. Servants sent to clean the room were found insane the following day, as were several other noblemen who attempted a repeat of Warboys' bravado by spending a night in the dreaded room. In many accounts, victims were later found mutilated or expired from fright. Some had even apparently leapt from the window in an attempt to escape whatever monstrous thing they encountered in the room. Whatever the entity that Warboys saw looked like might be explained by the experience of two other witnesses. On Christmas Eve in 1887, two sailors on shore leave from their ship, the HMS Penelope, spotted the "To Let" sign outside the vacant house. Being very inebriated, they decided it would be a good place to kip down for the night. Being also completely unaware of 50 Berkeley Square's evil reputation, they opted for a room on the second floor, as the ground floor rooms were quite damp. The two men were woken by the sound of heavy, purposeful footsteps ascending up the stairs, which were accompanied by a putrid stench. The door was burst open, and there in the doorway was what was described as a shapeless, slithering, horrible mass. One of the sailors managed to squeeze past and ran to find help, but the other man was trapped. When the first sailor returned with a policeman, they found the body of his comrade. He was impaled on the metal railings outside the house, his face contorted in terror. He had seemingly tried to escape the thing by climbing out of the window and had either jumped or fallen, or the unfortunate man had been thrown to his death. Those who have no reason to disbelieve the witness accounts of 50 Berkeley Square have tried to research an explanation for the ghoulish haunting. The two most common theories both attribute a form of residual spiritual energy as the culprit. The first theory suggests that the cause originated when a Mr. Dupre confined his violently insane brother in an upstairs bedroom, from where his groans and screams could clearly be heard by neighbours in adjacent houses. The door to the room was always kept locked, as it was unsafe for anyone to enter inside, and there was a small opening through which food and water were passed to the suffering man. The second theory, however, points to another house tenant, a certain Mr. Myers. This man rented 50 Berkeley Square in order to provide a matrimonial home for himself and his soon-to-be wife. However, sadly at the last moment, his bride-to-be jilted him, and he vowed that he would never allow another woman near him. The scarred man locked himself away, sleeping in an upstairs attic room during the day and only emerging at night when he was seen to wander around the house by candlelight. The house descended into disrepair, and local people became scared of the strange lights and noises during the night and its deranged occupant. At one stage, Myers was sued by the local council for non-payment of his rates. When he did not even front for the court hearing, the magistrate excused him on the grounds that he was known to live in a haunted house. It was said that after his passing in the early 1870s, his room had an ominous and chilling atmosphere. After the 1930s, the hauntings by the nameless thing seemed to calm down, although much speculation continued about what it may have been, whether a poltergeist, demon, some extra-dimensional being, or even a cryptid that had somehow strayed from the nearby Thames River through the sewers. According to the handed-down narrative, 50 Berkeley Square is so charged with psychic tension, merely touching the exterior brickwork imparts a tingling and spine-chilling sensation. There are other supernatural presences associated with London's most haunted house, who include a ghostly girl who wears a kilt, the child having been reportedly done away with by a sadistic servant. A young woman who took her own life there is said to appear as either a brown mist or a white figure. She purportedly threw herself from the attic room's window after being violated by her uncle. Many others who supposedly spent time in the house met an unfortunate demise. The Mayfair magazine published an article in 1879 which claimed that a maid had a terrifying spectral encounter in the attic room that had driven her into insanity. She was placed into an asylum where she promptly expired. She was the maid of 2 teenage daughters of the house, of whom the elder detested the smell in the house, which she likened to animals in the zoo. Her fiancé was a Captain Kentfield, upon whose visit to the house the maid was sent up to the attic to prepare a bed for him. The family was then horrified by her screams coming from upstairs. When they hastened up to the attic, they found her sprawled on the floor in a coma-like state and muttering, "Don't let it touch me." Apparently, Captain Kentfield then decided to stay in the attic to deal with the appalling ghost that had dispatched the maid. On that fateful night, the whole household heard his screams from above and a gunshot. Rushing upstairs, they found him deceased on the floor. In another account, aristocrat and politician Lord Lyttelton stayed a night in the house's attic in 1872 as a bet. He also fired at some presence he saw that night, but kept his life and sanity. Strangely, he could only find his shotgun cartridges the next morning when he went up to investigate the scene of the encounter. While many people have debunked these hideous tales of the nameless thing, the question is posed as to why did the hauntings arise in the first place, and in that particular house. In Season 3 of the TV crime drama Whitechapel, historian Edward Buchan relates the story of 50 Berkeley Square while explaining that different phenomena were reported because they were all invented. D.C. Mansell is obviously relieved, but then he thinks and queries, then why the stories in the first place? Why in that house? To which Buchan merely replies, "What a very good question."